Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the changes that have happened to the Elemental Shaman over the last week. It has been quite the turbulent week. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of lefts, a lot of rights, honestly, as Blizzard is trying to rapidly get the 10.1 PTR in shape for launch in just over 2 weeks. Honestly, there's probably going to be more changes than just this. A lot of things are still looking really crazy. We are officially done with raid testing as of right now. And some of those last looks we got on some of the fights are very all over the place. Magmarax specifically still looks absolutely dire. So with that being said, let's go ahead and slow it down. Let's just talk about the changes over the last week, as well as kind of all the changes that have been happening on the PTR to Elemental Shaman, just kind of like a wrap up of everything that's been kind of going on. And we'll just kind of go through it. Fortunately, Blizzard has put together a post that they've kept up to date and kind of shows all those changes in one spot, so we don't have to be flipping around too much and going through multiple different posts. So that is quite nice. And I will have a link to this in the description as well if you want to read it at your leisure or reference it for later. So like going back couple weeks ago, multiple weeks ago at this point, deeply rooted elements was changed to be more consistent amongst all specializations. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into what that specifically means or how that specifically works, but just the takeaway there is that you're not going to have those huge high rolls where you're getting back to back to back DRE procs anymore, but you will see it more consistently. Like you won't have those periods of time where you're just like not seeing it for 5 minutes, which sometimes would happen. So again, we remove the high roll and buff up that low roll. Overall, this does, in most situations, come out to be a DPS gain, question mark, I think, but a lot of the allure to DRE kind of like wanes because of this. I know a lot of people liked that high gambly roll. I personally do not like the talents at all. It needs to be completely redesigned or removed or something. This at least helps make it a little bit more consistent in that way. But that was a couple weeks ago. So Bloodlust and Heroism is now 2% base mana instead of 21%. That's nice. Spiritwalker's Grace now has a grace period allowing you to continue to cast for a short period of time if a ability expires while casting. So in my testing of this, what this essentially means is that if you're casting something like a Lightning Bolt or a Healing Surge or something, as it expires, you'll be able to finish that cast. I haven't run into any situation where there's like a specific cast where you can't finish it, but it just makes it very nice that you're not having to cancel that cast while you're moving. It'll just let you, whatever that last cast you were doing as it's expiring, you'll be able to finish it. So that's just a nice, I would consider that quality of life. It's just extra nice to have that, so you're not canceling a cast while moving, or you're having to pay attention to like planting your feet mid cast or something like that. So nice quality of life change there. Earth Grab Totem is now a 30-second cooldown instead of 1 minute. That's kind of crazy. You can actually make it so you have 100% uptime on these things, and it does say Earth Grab on here, but on PTR it's both Earth Grab and Earth Bind. Both of these now have a 30-second cooldown. So that, along with Totemic Surge, I believe is the talent, which reduces it by 6 seconds, so that you can have it at a 24-second cooldown as well, and its duration is baseline 20 seconds, which with Totemic Focus can be increased to 30 seconds. So yeah, you can have over 100% uptime. You can actually have 2 of these totems out at one time for that 6-second overlap, whenever that would ever be useful. But anyway, that's just nice. It's just more slow. Have access to it more often. Nothing else to really say there. It's just a nice change. I don't know where that came from, but hey, you know, we take those, absolutely. So the healing changes here. So before we talk about the healing changes, we have to talk about this one other post in case you haven't seen it at this point. Player health and enemy damage is increased now. We can just sum it up by reading it real quick. When damage mitigation abilities and healing are too strong relative to player health, the only way to threaten players is to make enemy damage very high and spiky, which is what it has been. Very high spike damage that you have to either quickly react to or you just get one shot. If healers can very quickly top off the teammates and mana isn't a limiting factor, enemies have to be tuned to have the capacity to do burst damage that kills players before healers can react, and that isn't very satisfying gameplay. Increasing player health and tuning enemy damage appropriately gives players more time to react to incoming damage, and it makes players' choices about cooldowns and mana management more meaningful. So basically the whole idea, what they're going for here is they just want to have like a bigger health pool that they can play with, and healers have to kind of fight to keep your health up. But what they did as well is pretty much every hybrid class for the DPS specs, all of our healing was increased. So you'll see here like our healing surge increased by 37%, Earth Shield by 25%, Chain Heal by 25%, and Healing Stream by 25%. And if you look down here, it enhances. They got the exact same buff, but Restoration did not see any of that. So the whole idea is buffing the DPS specs to help compensate. And the reason why they kind of did this, and I do disagree with this slightly, but they're doing this because they do look at our off healing as part of our defensive kit. I'm not a big fan of looking at it like that. You know, but you can't replace a 40% damage reduction with just healing through it all the time. That just doesn't work. And not only that, you're having to sacrifice uptime to keep yourself alive. It just doesn't feel great when you're having to do that, but this clearly shows that's what they're looking at here. You know, I wish we had maybe even seen like a buff to maybe AG instead. But obviously with increased damage, you don't really need it that much. AG is still going to be very, very good because we're going to be doing more damage, obviously. But it does like kind of push us more into pressing these buttons. It does. You could also argue that this is just keeping up with that increased health pool. So it's the same kind of percentage. Obviously it's 25%, most of these except for Healing Surge. So it's just trying to keep up so they're not completely useless. You can put it that way. But, you know, you combine the Healing Stream Totem increase with like the Swirling Currents of 40%. And all of a sudden Healing Stream, again, I mean, it always was, but it looks even more nice to take. And to actually use as a global, especially for movement, something like that, throwing down a Healing Stream Totem, being able to actually have a very, very solid GCD heal that you have access to as a hybrid class. Again, I don't like looking at things like Healing Surge as a defensive, but clearly Blizzard does. So it will be nice. Healing Surge does seem to heal for a good amount now. So, you know, keep that in mind. It is useful to have these healing spells as a backup anyway. So that being said, that's probably too much words for that, but we did get our healing buff to compensate for that player health and enemy damage increase. Moving on. So now we're into the stuff that happened this week. Actually, so is, that being said, the healing stuff also is this week as well. But the things that affects our actual damage, this is all that happened this week. So the first thing that happened is our 2-piece was nerfed from getting Stormkeeper every 40 seconds to now getting it every 50 seconds. And then at the same time, our 4th set was also nerfed, which was generating extra Maelstrom. We'd get 100% Maelstrom from our Lightning Bolt, Lava Burst, Ice Fury, and Frost Shock. It was 100% additional Maelstrom, and now it's been reduced down to 75. So when that first happened, a lot of people were dooming out of their minds. Again, I had said in my last video that Elemental is strong, but not overpowered. And it did feel bad to just kind of like look at this without anything next to it. And just like see this as just like a nerf. Now, I will say, the thing I was scared of the most with this 4-set nerf is that it would make the flow to the opening sequence of to a Lightning Bolt single target. It would throw that out of proportion and make it kind of jank. Fortunately, none of that happens. The Lightning Build single target opener is the exact same. Nothing is affected by this at all. So fortunately, we're not having to like come up with a new single target rotation. So fortunately, that's nice. So overall, you don't feel it too much. There is some kind of janky overlap now with this being 50 seconds with your Stormkeeper, that you're going to have some times where they start kind of getting like on top of each other there a little bit. But that's not too big of a workaround. That's not something that we should be like worrying about too much. And overall, not that big of a deal. The initial numbers when we first saw this that I was hearing was around 3 to 5% single target DPS nerf. So not the end of the world, but not something that I felt like we necessarily needed. I was pretty convinced, and I was actually just about to release a video yesterday about the fact that there's no reason to doom over this. There's no way this is the last bit of tuning. Again, Demonology Warlocks have not been touched at all. So with that being said, I figured there'd be more to it than this, and that there wasn't really much reason to doom about it or anything like that. And with that being said, yesterday as well, right before the last raid test, we got these buffs. And these buffs are that the Lava Surge is triggered by Primordial Surge, increases the damage of your Lava Burst by 15%. It was 25%. Okay, so that's a nerf. But everything else, Lava Burst damage is now increased by 12%. So, you know, we take that 12% Lava Burst damage increase. We'll take a nerf to the first Lava Burst after Primordial Surge, going from 25 to 15. Elemental Blast damage increased by 6%. I do think that was very warranted, as well as Earth Shock by 6% and Lightning Bolt by 6%. I don't know what it is, but like the last couple buffs to Elemental have all been in multiples of 6. It's really weird. But that being said, that apparently that's the number they want to use. So I haven't seen any real numbers on this yet on how this compares. Again, this, as of making this was less than like 12 hours ago, maybe a couple more hours ago that I'm recording this right now from when this buff went live. I don't know if this completely covers the nerf to the 2 and 4 piece, but it does shift some of that damage away from the 2 and 4 piece back into the class itself. So overall, it'll probably come out to be close, if not basically the same. It might still be a nerf overall. It might actually be a buff overall. But the big thing to take away from this is that this does help out fire builds just a little bit more. There's still probably going to be behind lightning builds for the most part. But I did mess around with some fire builds on PTR Mythic Plus, and it didn't feel bad. It still seems to lack in that single target area compared to the lightning builds. But it was able to kind of keep up in AoE. It doesn't have the same level of burst as like the lightning builds seem to have for AoE, but it was doing something. You know, fire builds they're trying to help keep them up a little bit. I do think Blizzard, like the way this reads to me is that Blizzard doesn't want to completely erase one play style, like not completely erase it. Obviously, there's always going to be one build for one specific situation that's always going to be better. Like, there's no way for them to tune that closely where you can really say playstyle. That being said, you could kind of say that right now in 10.0. They've actually somehow hit that with the lightning builds versus the wildfire builds in 10.0 Mythic Plus content. You actually might be able to make that argument, actually, but it's a very hard target to hit. So what this reads to me is they didn't want fire builds to get too far behind. They're extra buffing up that lava burst damage. I just don't think it's going to be enough to cover the distance between that and the lightning builds. But we'll see. You know, if you really enjoy wildfire and you absolutely hate lightning, you know, try it out. See what happens. I did some keys with it on PTR, and it definitely wasn't bad. It just wasn't necessarily as powerful as the lightning builds. Is the best way to put it. So, with that being said, updating everything from this past week, as well as just in general from the PTR and everything that's gone on since it started to now, we're kind of in that same place where we were when I made that last video. You know, I think that Elemental is going to be strong. I think that we won't be overpowered, but we will be strong. We're not, you know, like, and not only that, not all the tuning is done. 100% there's going to be more tuning. Again, there's no way that Demo doesn't even get like a tiny bit touched somewhere, because right now demonology is kind of at the top in a lot of different categories right now, and a couple of other classes kind of have that same kind of situation. There's also some classes that need some help. Holy crap, there are some classes that need some help. I think I don't want to like overspeak, but I haven't even seen, I forgot that rogues existed on the PTR. The only ones that I've played with them on Mythic Plus, they've been awful. Now, I don't know if that's like the players I've played with, but god dang, you know, some of their damage has been really bad. So like rogues need some help, it looks like, which is so crazy to say, honestly. They've been doing very well in 10.0, and they've just disappeared off the face of the earth in PTR. Some of those fixes might have already gone through at this point. As you can see, there's like buffs up here for rogue and stuff like that. So, oh, not that many. Never mind. Maybe they still need some help. I don't know. But there's a couple classes that need some help still. They're not done with tuning yet. That's the point I'm trying to make. They're not done with tuning yet. There will be more things. We might get touched a little bit more. It's really hard to say. But as of right now, my opinion that I put out in my last video about like if you should play Elemental, it's basically everything's the same in terms of how I felt about it then, I feel about it now. Elemental seems to be like it's going to be strong. We still don't bring a raid buff, so that obviously is a mark against us. But if you can play the class well, and if you enjoy playing it, then I highly suggest you play it. It looks like Lightning's going to be the way. Still looks like it's going to be the way. And as of right now, we look to be in a strong spot. Not overpowered, just strong, which is the best that we can hope for. Again, another thing to also keep in mind, and I did say this in the last video as well, is that the raid looks very, very not single target. The raid looks, well, it does. The raid does look very single target focused, but it also looks very melee unfriendly, which is a bonus to Elemental being ranged. It's probably one of the most melee unfriendly raids that I've seen since, I don't know, Old Deer maybe? I don't know. Like maybe someone in the comments can give me a better one that's more recent, but Old Deer was pretty melee unfriendly as well. This one might be worse than that. So that does put a, you know, a point in Elemental's column there. But other than that, I think we're looking strong. I can say that like, you know, 5 more times, but hopefully we don't get, you know, nerfed into the ground between now and launch. But as of right now, everything's looking solid. If you enjoy playing Elemental, I'd highly suggest playing it. Oh yeah, that's pretty much it. So let me know if you guys have any comments. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. It definitely helps the channel. But other than that, guys, that's pretty much it. And I will see you in the next video.